record to this computer. And then we will start, 12:01. Okay, I'm gonna start. On December 15, 2025, in Tokyo, Ken Eris, the son of detained Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi, spoke in public about his deep concern for his mother's safety. He said there has been a complete information blackout and he is demanding the military junta to provide independent proof of life, such as a recent photo or medical confirmation. For I note she could be dead already, he said on that day. The following day, the military issued a rare statement claiming she is in good health, but no evidence was provided. These remarks have intensified public and media concern around the world. To discuss this situation, I'm joined today by Mr. Clements, a former spokesman, a human rights activist, and a longtime observer of the country's political struggle. He is the author of several influential books, including Burma, The Next Killing Field, The Voice of Hope, Burma Voice of Freedom, the recent book titled Conversations with a Dictator, and so on. Mr. Clement, welcome to DVB.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you and honored to be in your company to speak on behalf of the freedom of your people and the world. Myanmar is not an isolated situation. It's intimately connected to the freedom and the democracy and justice and rule of law of all human beings that have ever lived, that are living now, and I dare include the people to be born soon. So what happens in Myanmar is a very deep example of what will happen to the world, and we must care for Burma, and I'm honored to be in your company. Please take your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Recently, I read your article. In your article, you have described in the military treatments of Aung San Suu Kyi as an enforced disappearance. So my question is, what legal or factual grounds can this situation be classified as an enforced disappearance?
Well, the first word that comes to mind is criminality, cruelty on behalf of the dictator Ming Online. And I would like to say that although we often isolate on the man, Ming Online, the senior general of the Thamada, this man is a constellation of other men, generals, wives, children, bankers, corporate executives, not just in Myanmar, but in Singapore, in Bangkok, in Kuala Lumpur, in Jakarta, in Washington, in London, in Paris, around the world, in the United Nations. Ming Online exists because of this constellation of collusion with authoritarianism, with violent dictatorship, and to answer your question, with the criminality of the enforced disappearance of Nobel Peace Laureate Aung San Suu Kyi. And I might add here, we often speak of Aung San Suu Kyi as the Nobel Peace Laureate, the elected state counselor, the most notable figure in Myanmar. Having known her as a friend, as a colleague, as a co-author, know her husband very well, I know her family very well, I know her very well. I know her Dhamma teachers, the Sayadaw U Pandita, the late Venerable Sayadaw, who was one of the architects of Burma's struggle for freedom. My point is, Aung San Suu Kyi would be the first to say that the struggle for freedom in my country is not about me. So when we ask about the criminality and the incarceration of Aung San Suu Kyi, it's the incarceration of democracy. She's symbolic of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. All beings are born equal. She and I have talked about this in our book, The Voice of Hope. I am just one person who represents the will of the people, the rule of law, justice, peaceful coexistence, and all ethnicities in my country. So when Ming Online imprisons Aung San Suu Kyi, and I might add President Win Myint, my very dear friend, chief advisor to Aung San Suu Kyi, U Win Tain, can we even fathom 22,000 additional activists at this point imprisoned by Ming Online's constellation of cruelty called a dictatorship? So when we talk about Ming Online and we talk about Aung San Suu Kyi and Kim talks about his mother, really what we're talking about is the incarceration, the cruelty, the domination of the elected democratic leadership. Now, please bear with me. This is a very important point that rarely ever gets discussed. I'm an American. Many people in my country would like to see and have wanted to see our elected president, Donald J. Trump, to be imprisoned. They often critically say things. He is an autocrat, an authoritarian, a dictator. And I kind of laugh to myself. All you have to do is go live in Myanmar for a while and realize the difference between America and Burma.
Yeah.
One word difference and you're going to be in prison. My point is that Aung San Suu Kyi represents an elected leadership. If my country imprisoned all of Donald Trump's cabinet, the entire Senate, the Congress, every governor, categorically imprisoned and erased from public office. That's what's happened in Burma. And so when we talk about Aung San Suu Kyi, I think it's important for the world leaders to understand Ming Online and his men and people around the world are trying to erase the democratically elected leadership of an entire country. So it's cruel, and it's an unthinkable act of tolerated dictatorship in an era where I dare say things that sound almost cliched, the normalization of atrocity, the normalization of genocide, the normalization of violence and subjugation. And I will say this, and I'll end here with this, is the globalization of misogyny, the hatred of the feminine. Aung San Suu Kyi is obviously not just a leader, she's a woman. And the world's silence about this elected leader, a Nobel Peace Laureate that was aligned with the late Nelson Mandela, likened to a female Gandhi, that she would quickly bristle and say, don't even think of that.
Yeah.
But she spoke of the power of the voice, dialogue, reconciliation, peace, justice, coexistence. Those are the qualities. And she's been, where is she? Is she alive? We're asking, is she alive? That is called misogyny, hatred of the woman on a collective basis. You cannot justify what is happening to Burma or to Aung San Suu Kyi based on her so-called silence towards the Rohingya. That is such false information. I studied it in intimate detail with my colleague Fergus Harlow, one of the world's leading scholars on the Rohingya crisis. Aung San Suu Kyi was anything but silent, repeatedly spoke up. She went to The Hague, not to defend the military. She was direct, if you read the transcripts. Anyone in the Thamada that is seen and proven to be criminal, unjust, acting without the authority of compassion. Put in her words, if there are war crimes, they will be sentenced, there'll be a trial, they will be imprisoned. She didn't defend them.
Yes.
She defended the right of sovereignty to the people of Myanmar.
Mm.
She would do it again.
Mm.
And it's like this colossal misunderstanding. No, it's evident in the body of knowledge in the world. It's misogyny. And I think that's at the soul of this unthinkable world that we're in today, with men in high office, Netanyahu, Xi Jinping, Putin, formerly Assad, now in Moscow,
Mm.
Kim Jong-un of North Korea, President Donald Trump, so many men in the EU, Zelensky, driven by power, driven by profit, driven by privilege, driven by toxic patriarchy, which is intrinsically the hatred of the divine feminine, which are principles of dialogue, of mutuality, kindness, and coexistence. So I want to really take my time to illuminate this isn't about Aung San Suu Kyi. It's about all of us today waking up from the myth of domination.
Yes, thank you. But the senior general Myatt Aye not only seized the power by the overthrowing a democratic elected government, which is widely regarded as a high treason, but he has also arrested and imprisoned all the government leader, including the Aung San Suu Kyi. So I would like to know your views on what factor have emboldened him to carry out such terrible action with the apparent impunity.
I can answer that on a personal level. Having been a former Buddhist monk in your country,
Yeah.
and in a monastery in Rangoon, the Mahasi Tatanayekta, brought to the world by the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw. I bring this up because one of the principles, at least in my humble, brief experience of being a monastic in Myanmar, was we all make mistakes. We all, at times, speak wrongly. Judgment, blame, fear, anger, ignorance. All of us at some point or another have taken something that wasn't ours. Some people have harmed animals, some people have harmed birds, some people have harmed humans, some have killed them. The Buddhist texts, the Christian texts, the Muslim texts are filled with examples of human frailty. We make mistakes. The difference between being accountable to your mistakes and a dictatorship is one denies their faults, the others learn from their mistakes. Ming Online is if he were a meditator as a monk in a monastery, he would often be seen by the teachers and the Sayadaws as a very distorted young child, a very insecure boy in a military robe. And I don't mean to insult him, but I think his biggest fear is his shame, what we call in the West his shadow. Probably when he looks in the mirror or he talks to his wife or in a quiet moment when he's lying down with his pistol next to him, fearing he might be killed or eating something that could poison him. He's aware that I'm cornered. I don't know what to do. All I can do is continue to dominate, continue to kill, continue to lie, to believe my own propaganda. I do believe, and I don't want to sound overly holy or mystical, but I'm a believer that we must hold out the possibility of redemption. I wrote the book, Conversation with the Dictator, a challenge to the authoritarian assault that we've been giving away to world leaders with letters written by Fergus Harlow to President Trump, to leaders around the world, to Julian Assange, Roger Waters of Pink Floyd, Yoko Ono, once a tremendous supporter of Aung San Suu Kyi, believing that redemption is possible. If Ming Online was listening to this, I would say, sir, there is hope. Get on national TV tonight and tell your people, I have made a mistake. Release all the political prisoners. And if you really feel unsafe, take your family, take your money, and get on a plane while there's still time and fly to Russia and live in Moscow in exile with Assad and Putin, who will protect you. But give Myanmar back to the people. Otherwise, sir, there is no end game that's going to be favorable. We know, the world knows through history, you will fall like Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, Hitler, Pol Pot, Mussolini. The world is littered with dictators who did not see the light. You have an option, sir. Don't think it's naive. Talk to your family, talk to your wife, listen to Kim Aris, release Daw Suu, release the political prisoners, get on a plane, leave the country, save your life, save your money, and give the country back to the people who are fighting right now and will not stop until the country is returned to its rightful owners, the people. No one's willing to talk to you that way, sir, except your conscience. And I end here. We have two words, as you know very well, in classical Buddhist Dhamma. And because I'm a Buddhist, I say these words, but I grew up as a mystical Christian. I respect different religions. Hiri and Ottappa, moral shame, moral regret. Moisten those two qualities of conscience. I made a mistake.
Yes.
I made a mistake. Read the story of King Ashoka of ancient India. He made a mistake. He redeemed himself. He brought the Dhamma to the world. Sir, you can do the same thing. It's not too late. And I say this with care.
Yeah.
It's possible that with your absolute statement of freedom for the political prisoners and you leaving the country, you might be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. It's possible. It's possible. Otherwise, you can't kill the enemy when you're the enemy. That's called suicide. And so please ask a senior Sayadaw, ask your wife, tell someone, beg them, be honest with me. Am I making a mistake by not releasing Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, President Win Myint, and all the political prisoners? You are making a mistake not to immediately release them.
Thank you so much, sir. Recently, you mentioned the Rohingya issue. So I have one question. So my question is, does the international community continue to hold misconception about Daw Aung San Suu Kyi in relation to Rohingya crisis?
It's tragic and it brings tears to my eyes to have to answer this. Fergus Harlow and I, we've been longtime forensic journalists dedicated to your country's struggle for freedom. I personally have been in and out of your country since 1977. I've interviewed almost every political leader, alive and dead, including Sea U Tin U, U Chi Mong, U Win Tin, the founders of the National League for Democracy. I've interviewed the Myanmar leaders of the Muslim faith throughout the country, Hindu leaders, Jewish leaders, atheist leaders, Catholic leaders. I've studied in intimate detail the Rohingya crisis, the crisis in Karen State. You mentioned my book, Burma, the Next Killing Fields, which came out in 1990, if I'm correct. That was the Thamada's attempted erasure of the Karen people, Christians. It's not anything new that the military of Burma is an out-of-control rogue mafia. They're traumatized, they're terrified. There's a reason for that. What happened in Rakhine State is horrific with what happened to the Rohingya. But the truth of it is we've studied. And there are many elements of this that really complicate it. One very important one, to answer your question about Daw Suu, I was in Burma during this crisis repeatedly. I was in Rangoon when her deep, intimate colleague, Konini, her, I dare even use the word, Muslim lawyer from Rakhine State, an NLD member. Hear that. She's not Islamophobic. One of her closest allies was Muslim, trying to find a legal way to challenge the dictatorship delivered 2008 Tan Shui illegal constitution, but legally. And he was assassinated, as you know, in broad daylight in Rangoon Airport. Okay, Daw Suu gave her life, her freedom. All of your people in leadership gave everything for peaceful coexistence in Rakhine State, in Shan State, in Karen State, for the Burmese. 95% of all political prisoners in Burma are Burmese Buddhist, not Muslim. Okay? In Rakhine State, she initiated what was known, a very important point for everyone about whether she was silent. The former Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan. What are you saying, Alan? She initiated an independent council governed by the former Secretary General Kofi Annan with, I think, dozens of world dignitaries and researchers that I think went into Rakhine State over 100 different times for the distinct purpose of understanding peaceful coexistence among all ethnicities in Rakhine State, including the Buddhists, the Muslims, the Rohingya. Daw Suu initiated that? Yeah. On the day of the report, was it August 17th, 2017? The Arkan terrorist organization, ARSA, there's a terrorist organization attributed to the Rakhine State and the Rohingya? Oh yeah, the crisis group labeled them a terrorist group, similar to Hamas and the Taliban. And, I don't want to vilify, but they attacked 30 military outposts and police stations simultaneously on the day that Kofi Annan was to deliver his report. What are you saying? That level of provocation, even though I don't agree with the policies of the Thamada Arming Online, if there were 30 simultaneous American embassies that were attacked by an Islamic terrorist organization, that country of origin of where those terrorists came from would be nuked the next day. Could you imagine on October 7th what happened in that horrific attack in Israel? That's what happened in Rakhine State on a similar level in 30 different installations. Look what has happened, Israel's response to Gaza and Hamas. Okay, I'm not justifying anything, but Ming Online's dictatorship said, okay, call it a clearance operation. But when you study it, which we've done in Fergus Hollow, you should have him on. ARSA, in reverse engineering, Amnesty reported they killed 99 Hindus. This is not a simple case of ethnic cleansing or genocide in the Rakhine state of the Rohingya. What happened was horrific, but I think there's something like 10 to 20,000 that estimated were killed, 100,000, 500,000, 800,000, a million fled into Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. It's not the horror of institutionalized genocide of 75,000 Palestinians and 2 million displaced and the decimation of their entire homeland by bombs. Aung San Suu Kyi stood up for them. I talked to her about it. She says, Alan, it's not that I've been silent. They don't like what I'm saying.
Mm.
She laughed about it.
Mm.
And it's tragic what's happening there, but it's happening all over the country. It's happened to us as Buddhists. We can only find mutual peace if we stop vilifying one side or the other. That point is so important. She's a woman rooted in nonviolence and reconciliation. She tried to stop the war of vitriol and blame. She's a nonviolent leader of the rarest kind in the world, which empowered national reconciliation, non-demonization, and non-killing as a means to resolve differences. But she did speak up for the Rohingya.
Yeah.
She's,
And
so
yeah,
please.
yeah. So in this case, I have another question. Why has it been so difficult for them to fully understand the politics and moral constraints she was operating under at that time?
That's a very important question. It's no difference than the incredible vilification of, say, President Trump, based upon engineered misinformation, deliberate propaganda, political vilification for power and privilege and prosperity for their own divided partisan groups. The corporate media has proven itself to be essentially a machinery of lying, propaganda, and driven, tragically, trace back the money primarily to big pharma and big weapons. They profit on murder, they profit on genocide, they profit on the dissemination of medical tyranny, the Wuhan virus that we called COVID, SARS, lie, a driven propaganda, and they're in the side of Biden and Fauci and big pharma. And it's like, follow the money trail. And so I don't know why human consciousness does things that are so stupid, but people at their core, I've seen it as a young monk.
Yeah.
I can do some really stupid things. I can lie to myself, you know, and it's very challenging. It takes a lot of moral courage to look at yourself in the mirror and change your emotional intelligence, your Dharma intelligence, your mindful intelligence, and craft a more honest relationship with dignity and mutuality. So I think this is a psychological issue driven primarily by profit, privilege, and power. But I don't give up hope.
Yeah.
But this is why your country and Dasu and the leaders of your country that are now imprisoned, it is so much larger and more intimate and powerful than a country of nearly 60 million people in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
People, very few people understand. They should read our books. I've done this recent book called Unsilenced, a book of fictional conversations with Dasu. I know her very well. I know the leaders. They outline qualities of leadership and anti-authoritarianism that the world has never known. Your country is unlocking the future of hope for the world. And I think all it takes is one to break the Alcatraz, the prison camp of indoctrinated self-deceit. If they studied our work, Aung San Suu Kyi from prison, my book on silence, Conversation with the Dictator, my recent book, Politics of the Heart, you will see verbatim what Daw Suu and the people of her leadership said. You'll have to correct your views and you go, God, I got it wrong because I believe the New York Times. I believe the Independent. I believe the BBC. I believe CNN. And they were lying to us.
Mm.
Okay? Apologize and tell the truth. That's my advice to the Independent. That's my advice to Bono.
Mm.
You got it wrong.
Mm.
Make it right.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So in this case, medias are also, they have the Western media, they also have the responsibility. Kim also said that. Um, Another one, I have another question, like some argument that Daum San Suu Kyi's, they said, political approach was ultimately bound to fail because she practiced what we call gentleman politics. While in the military, she confronted is willing to use any means necessary to retain power. So given that Myatt Aye also himself also said he would do anything to hold onto authority. So how do you assess this argument?
Ooh. I've thought about it over the decades many times. I've discussed it with leaders. I've discussed it with Daw Suu, with U Tin Oo, with U Win Tin. I mean, I don't think any of us really understand what it means to be in a cage with a tiger, a lion, and all you have is your hands.
Mm.
You know, we're looking at the evolution of human consciousness play out. And that's why Burma is an archetype of the divine feminine, empowering nonviolence, reconciliation, the power of human dialogue. I'm in a house with a wife or a husband and a family, and the man is saying, damn you, shut up. Hey, listen, let's talk about it. No, I don't want to talk it with you, and punches her. That's Ming Online. That's the Dhamada.
Mm.
And the world is saying, punch him back. Pull out the knife from under the bed, kill him. He's hurting the kids, stop him now. And she's saying, that will not stop the problem, and it may not even help me or the kids. I think we've got to do something differently, which means why don't you come knock on the door and listen to the argument and tell the guy to settle down in the United Nations, and let's have an open-hearted discussion about peaceful coexistence. Don't keep sending him weapons. Don't keep taking his banking. Don't keep buying his oil and his trees and his slave labor and his plastics and his teak. Okay, cut off his economic pipeline and he might listen to you, but he's empowered through the toxic adrenaline of I belong to the dominator metaphor of the world called money and power and corporate dictatorship. And so she did an experiment. Just like Gandhi, he didn't go try to kill the British. He walked to the ocean, held up a handful of salt to the sun, and it changed a nation. Nelson Mandela spent nearly 30 years without vilifying the enemy, walked out and sought reconciliation with the white apartheid dominator regime. Daw Suu and her colleagues did the same thing. Why the world doesn't wake up and listen to Myanmar? It's not too late. We're at the so-called end game. Ming Online's troubles will only begin. I want to say this. He's in hot water now, but after this is completely, it's not even appropriate to call it a sham election. It's preposterous. It's tragically nailing his coffin.
Mm.
He's putting him closer and closer to the runway to fly to Moscow, which is a good thing, because no one in the world and his own people, and Burma has a long history of where did Ne Win end up before he died.
Yeah.
Tan Shui is all but in house arrest, okay? Ming Online, it ain't going to be so comfortable for you and your family and your friends and your kids to trust that you're going to be in house arrest in Naypyidaw, because the revolutionaries are coming. And I would be suggesting to you, no offense, release the political prisoners, do the right thing, get on a plane, go to Moscow and hang out and drink tea and cognac with Putin. I don't say that with satire or comedy. I say it with tragic honesty. So do the election, but do not harm Daw Aung San Suu Kyi any more than you harm her. And I would be suggesting that you be looking very, very closely with your friends and family at immediate release and confirmation of her being alive, with independent people there to see, independent of your people, that she actually is alive. Let her talk to her son, Kim, and, oh, wow, okay, Mom, you are alive. Bring in members of the United Nations and principal leaders around the world. Let them meet Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, President Win Myint, U Win Tain. If you don't want to release them, let's have contact. Otherwise, no one's talking with honest directness to Ming Online. That's the problem with dictatorship.
Yeah.
And if I were to had an audience with President Donald Trump, we've written letters to him and to Marco Rubio and to J.D. Vance, to lots of different leaders. Alan, what do you want to tell me? Daw Suu is your ally. You want to win the Nobel Peace Prize? Release a Nobel laureate, invite her to the White House, and ask her what you could learn from her lessons of being a leader in a dictatorship where they're accusing you of being a dictatorship, so you don't make those mistakes. And the next thing you know, it's like you've brought the release of the world's leading Nobel laureate. You've corrected the narrative about the false accusations about her around the Rohingya, about her standing up for dictatorship at The Hague. All that was wrong. Get it right. Make the world do what Ming Online should do. Do it, Mr. Trump, while Daw Suu is alive. Call on Ming Online right now. You want peace in Cambodia and Thailand? No more sham centers in Shan State. No more fentanyl on our streets, Ming Online. Mr. Xi Jinping, Putin, Burma is mine and ours together. I want democracy in Burma, and Daw Suu is an elected leader with Win Myint. Ming Online, release her or we're coming after you tonight. Peace through strength, okay? Hey, dude, you've got an option. Get on a plane, release the leaders, or we're coming after you, or we're going to just completely drain you of financial support, military support. I will make it a point in my government, Ming Online, to absolutely banish your finances. It's possible if one man in the American government, President Donald J. Trump, I hope he hears this, sees this, it goes viral, just this clip. If you have doubts, sir, invite me to a Zoom conversation. I went to the University of Virginia, very near to the White House. I will fly there on my own dime. I will meet you. I will talk with you. I will show you the evidence so you can have a certain declaration of truth to the world on perhaps the greatest act that you have done among a number in your first year of presidency. Call on the immediate release of the Nobel Peace Laureate, Aung San Suu Kyi, and in your bonnet of peace accords, bring peace to Myanmar.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. I have another question. Let's go to the topics. And the military has systematically targeted Aung San Suu Kyi through the character assassination and imprisonment, and even the auctions of her home. And she has now been kept entirely out of the public view for more than 3 years, so raising serious concern about her situation. My question is, from your perspective, what does this prolonged silence indicate, and what can reasonably be said about her current condition?
Ming Online is an amateur dictator. He draws his psychological, pseudo-emotional intelligence from real alpha guerrilla dictators. Xi Jinping, not the Chinese people. That's a declared authoritarian regime over there. There's many things about Mr. Putin that I actually admire, but he's also radically heavy-handed. I say this, that Ming Online is an amateur drawing strength from his mentors. Mr. Putin is making a colossal error providing weapons, drones, missiles, military technology, and a nuclear plant outside of Naypyidaw. That is a colossal mistake. The president of Belarus made a colossal error in agreeing and aligning with Ming Online. Xi Jinping, a colossal oversight, aligning in any way with Ming Online, even behind the scenes wanting more Democrat. Just be straight up. We don't want heroin. We don't want opium. We don't want fentanyl. We don't want it on our streets. We don't want a chemical war on our people. And we don't want a dictatorship in Southeast Asia. We want a democracy. So Ming Online, he's in a very fragile position that I don't know that he could trust anything more than a couple of minutes at a time. And so the disappearance of Daw Sue, to answer your question, from my humble outside opinion, is she is the heavyweight, the biggest trump card in Myanmar. To keep the world ambiguous about whether she's alive or dead is a calculated move by an amateur dictator. It's such a bad move that even if you don't like Daw Sue, it's an 80-year-old woman in a windowless prison cell, and you're not even letting the world validate that she's alive, and that we've heard from her lawyers in Paris indirectly that she was injured in the Sagaing earthquake of last year, and She's had gum disease, according to her son, and she has a heart condition that requires immediate medical attention. Ooh, I could never, in true integrity and honesty, shake your hand, even if I were Mr. Putin. I would have to be blind and be misinformed by my handlers that I shook the hand of someone so wicked. Set aside 22,000 other political prisoners where torture is routine, starvation is routine, execution we know has happened. Zayathal, we know what happened to Zayathal. I only want to bring the others up. We know what's happening to the people of your country. We know what recently happened to the bombing of the hospital in Rakhine State. We know what's going on in Karen State. We know what's going on in Shan State. We know what's going on in Chin State. You burn, you kill, you execute, you torment with impunity. But guess what? You're frightened. That's why you hold Aung San Suu Kyi like it's your last hope. If you were to let us know that she's alive, you wouldn't know what to do with what she would say. What if she said,
Yeah.
what? You can't take the risk. So it's a calculated move of a desperate amateur dictator who's terrified for himself, his money, his family. And this is one of the sad things. Go and look at the footage online of how the world found Saddam Hussein deep in the ground, dirty and sweaty and hungry. Gaddafi, was it Mussolini that was hung by his toes?
Mm.
Ming Online, we don't want you dead. We want our leaders free. Right now, we're speaking to you, but there's a lot of people in the world that will realize the truth.
Mm.
And guess what, sir? Democracy is going to win on this planet, not dictatorship.
Yeah.
And all it takes is one big lion or two to turn their attention from Gaza or Sudan or Ukraine. Bear with me. All it's going to take is, wow, President Trump, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. What if J.D. Vance? What if Elon Musk made a point with his 250 million followers? Daw Aung San Suu Kyi should be freed. And all over X and Twitter, a global outrage. All of the Rohingya story was a lie. This is a Nobel woman representing a Nobel country that brought mindfulness to the world. 131 different ethnicities. They're bringing coexistence to the world. Be aware, Ming Online. You're playing a very bad hand. And I hope you hear this. And if you want to bring me to Naypyidaw to have an open conversation with you, I promise an unedited live broadcast. I'll risk going there, sir. Have me come to your palace in Naypyidaw and let us have an honest discussion. Let me ask you questions in the spirit of open dialogue and answer any way that you want. And allow me to answer and ask any question that I want. And let's let the world in on the truth of how you think and feel and what motivates you to imprison, torture, execute, and disappear your elected democratic leaders. We all know that they were imprisoned because of your fear of losing power. It wasn't a rigged election. Okay, I'm sorry. It's just nonsense, sir. It's not even kindergarten nonsense. So invite me there. Provide safety. I'll fly on my own points that I have with United Airlines. I'll go in. I trust your people and your country on your word. But let's move this story forward and allow the people of Myanmar to speak. The Shan, the Kachin, the Rohingya, the Muslims, the Catholics, the Jews, the Buddhists. Let's move this forward. But the election is going to be, and I say this with tremendous calm, it's a nail in your coffin, sir. You're going to win the election, but it's not a win. The people in the world will never agree to an election that took place other than a boy playing in a sandbox with a lie. Your legitimacy is not going to come from that. It's going to come from announcing the freedom of the elected leaders and doing the right thing. And you know, as a Buddhist, and if you don't know the truth of what you really feel in your heart, go to a sayadaw in that country and say, I want to know the truth from you. Should I release Aung San Suu Kyi? Should I allow people to meet her? And if that sayadaw had an ounce of panya and an ounce of hiri and otapa, sir, do it today.
Thank you. Well, my last question. With no verified information about Aung San Suu Kyi's whereabouts or her condition for years. So this moment feel increasingly critical. So what immediate responsibility do writer, scholars, media, and also international community have right now? And what concrete action must be taken before it is too late?
Kim Aris said it clearly and to the core of conscience. We must unify. Allow the past to be what it is. Don't need to correct your ideas. What we have is a democracy in Burma, flawed like America, like the EU, like UK, okay? We have an 80-year-old woman that was an elected leader along with everyone in her democratic leadership imprisoned. It is our necessity. Every activist, Amnesty International, Fortify Rights, Human Rights Watch, President Trump, all of the members of the Parliament of the EU, the prime ministers around the world, Italy, Australia, Japan, Mr. Putin, Xi Jinping. It is our moment to call for the immediate release of Daw Suu, President Win Myint, U Win Tain, and all the elected leaders. That must happen. And at the very least, demand accountability of an independent observational body of people, women and men, who actually go in and meet her and verify her life and help her with medical necessities today. That is essential for world leaders, members of the United Nations, Security Council, Xi Jinping, Putin, especially the media, Reuters, BBC, CNN, The Independent in UK, Al Jazeera, the New York Times. Put aside everything. It is our moment to call for one of the greatest leaders in our time, flawed as she and the countries and the leaders around the world are. She'd be the first to say this. I know her very well. We've documented that. Alan, I've got a very short temper. I really find stupid men really hard to be around. I said, I understand, especially when they torture and kill your own family and people. She's got humor and satire. So that's what people should do. That's what leaders should do. That's what the owner of the Independent in the UK could start with. Stop printing stories about the Rohingya. Call right now for the immediate release of Daw Suu. And let the BBC and CNN and the New York Times headline it out. Stop playing it safe And that's my advice to all journalists, even ones who were complicit with throwing her under the bus. They should write articles calling immediately. But the real point of it is ASEAN leaders, stop being political, call for her release. We want to know that she's alive.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, as an American, I can only speak for as an American. People ask me, I do believe that President Donald J. Trump, if he knew the truth, he would do the right thing. He's obviously married to a beloved wife, Melania. He's got a beautiful family.
Yeah.
Yes. Free her now. And you can be sure that Ming Online, yes, sir. And free President Win Myint.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, we have a democratic resurrection in your country. And all it takes, as Fergus and I have said in our campaign, useyourfreedom.org. Go to our website, the Daw Aung San Suu Kyi phrase, use your freedom to support our own freedom. We're giving away copies of my book, Conversation with the Dictator, with letters to world leaders.
Yeah.
Do the right thing, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Demand the release of Daw Suu. And from my heart to yours, Mr. President, may you ask your wife, should you do that? And Melania, please, you know exactly what to say. Donald, do it now.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. So the most important thing is we ask President Trump to say something about Aung San Suu Kyi.
Absolutely. And I do believe if he knew the truth, he would do it immediately.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah.
He's a man of integrity. He has his biases and troubles and struggles like all of us, but I do believe, I mean, Bill Maher, for example, our beloved comedy, political commentator, politically incorrect showman in our country, he was invited to the White House and he was vilifying Donald Trump left, right, and center. And he couldn't believe how President Trump listened to him, included him. He just had a completely different opinion, having met the gentleman, rather than the idea of the biases and the information that we get. And I do believe that President Trump, what I've done and studied of his life, if he knew this, if this information could get to him, which I really pray that it does, I think we'll see Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and the elected leaders of Myanmar. I think it'll be high on his list, not just Cambodia, not just Thailand, not just Ukraine and Russia, not just, but all of a sudden, Myanmar will be on his list of peace through strength.
Yeah.
Not just the blockages of fentanyl. Okay, we want to up the game a little bit from fentanyl. We don't want the fentanyl on our streets that we know Ming Online's involved in. We don't want terrorism in our country, but the people of Myanmar are good people. But we want the elected leaders of that country free. And Mr. Trump, I don't want to go on too far about this, but if you need personal support and understanding, I'm available anytime to talk with you.
Yes, yes.
But more is action. Please take action. And I appeal one last thing. It may be that President Donald J. Trump's wife receives a copy or information based upon our conversation. May I appeal to you, First Lady?
Yeah.
Don't wait for your husband to speak out. You can speak out as well, as you know. And equally, honey, what are you saying about Daw Aung San Suu Kyi? I've learned that it's important to look at the truth of what she's done and not done, and I've corrected my views. And I do believe, woman to woman, leader to leader, she's someone who we really should bring to the Oval Office in the White House. So that's my hope. All the Nobel Peace Laureate women in the world, change your views. Simply speak out for your Nobel Laureate sister. Once she's freed, she will be able to talk with us. We can ask her directly, did you make mistakes during the Rohingya crisis? Have you made mistakes as an elected leader? Imagine her saying, I did make mistakes. This is how we can learn from them. What a lesson for the world. So I hope that that lands intimately in the conscience of the First Lady and in my humble country of America. Stop calling America a dictatorship. Go to Burma for a while. We're an evolving democracy in which we've got freedom of speech. There's no freedom of speech in Myanmar. And let's demand freedom of speech from Mr. President Trump. Call for Daw Sue's freedom.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I wish your prayer will be answered. Thank you so much. I believe you have been working tirelessly. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude for your effort. Thank you so much, Guy.
It's a real honor to be part of the family from your country and for democracy in the world. I might add that I've recently done this trilogy called Conversation with a Dictator, Unsilenced Conversations with Daw Sue, and this last book, Politics of the Heart, which was the theme of my conversations with Daw Sue. What is nonviolence in an age of war and sanctioned genocide? And so I would really, if you want to go further with these conversations, get these books, especially Politics of the Heart. It's just come out this week. And all the proceeds we're donating to our nonprofit, useyourfreedom.org, to call for the freedom of the elected leaders of your country. So please give the book, send it to leaders.
Yeah.
And support the cause of democracy in Myanmar and for the world and for our children.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna do something. I will let you know. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.